Hey YouTube, welcome back to the channel. This is the Real Nathan Daley, and I'm your law enforcement translator, 13-year law enforcement veteran. You guys, listen, you know the spill. We are here on episode 2 of the Brandon Tatum interview. You guys, if you haven't seen part 1, you're missing out. Listen, I urge you to go back and watch part 1 again before you watch part 2, or you're going to be lost. You guys, listen, we had an amazing conversation. It was 2 hours long. This is a 4-part series, you guys, as you know. The next 2 will be in the membership section. If you want to catch the entire stream, you guys, please join the channel. For those who are here for the first time, welcome to my channel. Please subscribe. Please like this video. And listen, if you want to support the channel, you see value in what we're doing over here, would love for you to be a part of the membership. Love for you to be a part of this journey. And I'm excited to have you and those who are new. Listen, you guys, I'm not going to hold you. We're going to dive right into it. You guys, what are we talking about? Recap on this here. We are talking about a lot of the high-profile cases that have made the news. I'm asking Brandon his opinion. Listen, a lot of people ask me, say, hey, Brandon, listen, at the end of the day, we don't believe that you're supporting the people who are saying they're having bad outcomes with law enforcement, right? Majority of times it's the black community. So I'm asking him these questions. I'm getting his thoughts on it. Hey, Brandon, have you ever in YouTube, have you ever condoned the actions of an officer? Have you ever said that the officers actions were unjustified? Have you ever said they were guilty? Have you ever said they used excessive force, you guys? I'm asking him these questions. He's giving me the answers, you guys. Listen to what he has to say. We're going to dive right into it. Welcome to 2 sides of the same coin. This interview gets interesting. Without further ado.
Those are the things that bother me when I feel like that the system doesn't correct itself.
Correct.
The people correct the system.
Right.
If you want policing to change, become a police officer and be the change. You know, I had an opportunity when I was a cop, and I'm a believer, is that I wasn't just a police officer, man. I was a vessel that God used to speak life to people. There's some people that had to catch the hands. That's just the way it is. They wanted that. They wanted to fight. I have to defend myself, and I have to use a reasonable amount of force necessary to execute an arrest. And sometimes that take them getting punched in the face.
Facts.
Sometimes that has to happen. But once I dust them off, I don't hold a grudge. I say, man, don't do that again. This could have been handled better. God has another purpose for your life. You going to jail now, get out and do something different.
Yep.
You have a better purpose. I would tell people that I arrest, dude. I chase them down. We both out of breath. Brother, you don't need to be in this position. One kid, I never forget him. He reminded me of my cousin. My cousin doing 70 years in prison. He's up for parole. He may be a parole recently, and so that'd be 20 years in prison he did. No reason he done that much time in prison. It was all his fault, but it's sad that he had to do that much time. Another guy that I caught, whole family, life of crime. This kid he hijacked, he stole a car. We got him on the airplane. We got him on the helicopter, so he don't know we're watching him, but we can see him. He stole a car. He's in the car. He ditched the car. He jumps in the car with a random person, which was weird. He jumps out on the freeway. I'm training a rookie at the time. Me and the rookie pull up on him. He got a handful of drugs, a bag full of. It had heroin, crack, weed, pills, a handful of drugs.
Yeah.
We catch him. He throw the drugs behind his back like he was LeBron James, bro. And I remember him sitting in the car. He started crying because he was on probation and he was going to do 25 years in prison. That was his minimum. He had to go back and do 25. He violated probation. And I remember him crying in the car. You know, of course, these criminals tell you that they bad to the bone and they crying.
Always crying.
He's crying in the car, but he's talking about his grandmother. And in that instance, bro, I feel like that's like my cousin all over again. And I felt pity for him. I felt sad for his grandmother. Because I know what my grandmother went through when my cousin went to prison for 70 years. I know how I hurt the family. And I remember talking to him and being like, why would you do this to your grandma, man?
Yep.
Why would you do this to your grandma? You had no reason to be out here doing drugs and selling drugs. And he just crying, and then he snitched on everybody. And then he didn't realize that if you're on probation, you can't be an informant. So you snitch for no reason. But that's on him. You know what I'm saying? So he thought he was going to be an informant that day, and he snitched on everybody. But anyway, I tell that story to say, that, cops are humans, man. I wish people would understand that. I wish people would do ride-alongs.
Yep.
A ride-along is what caused me to become a police officer and inspired me to believe in police officers and want to be the change I wanted to see.
Absolutely. That's a dope story. And I tell people why people ask, I tell people all the time, every police officer is not created equal, to give them an understanding that we are all human beings wearing a uniform. And people ask me about what makes officers different. I said, people ask me, hey, are you going to admit that the KKK are in policing? I said, everybody's in policing, good, bad, and ugly. But the question is, what are you going to do about it? To your same response, you got to get in to change the system. A lot of people don't agree with that. So I was a problem solver for my department. I have tactical training as well. But I was tasked with solving issues. I was good at it. So I look at this as a problem that needs to be solved. You don't like the police, right? You don't want white officers policing your community. That's fine. We can do that. Then you need to sign up and put more Black people in that job. I call it Operation Chocolate Chip, right? So if you want to do it, get in it, right? I don't want to hear you complain. Now, at the same time, if you don't want police, you got some groups in our community, we don't want the system, the white man system. We don't want nobody in it, right? We don't want no part of it. Cool, I got a solution for you too. Then do the job yourself. The NOI do it. You have some communities that do it, and they do it very effectively. I said, but if you are going to police your own people, you got to have an answer to the crime, right? And let's not act like if the police disappear that the criminals go away too. It doesn't work like that. We had that in Atlanta where Keisha Lance Bottoms, bless her heart, right? She tore the city up. And so bad policy and trying to massage the feelings of people who don't want to obey the law tore the city apart in Atlanta. The Rayshard Brooks situation, she was trying to defend the suspect's decision instead of properly educate the people on police policy and procedure. And you could say it's tragic. You could say it shouldn't have happened, but you got to be honest with the people and say, hey, I hate that he did it, but the law supports the officer's action. The law and the policy, the officer was in policy. I wish there was another way, you guys, but she didn't do that. And it created a lot of turmoil, right? And so again, we have a problem when we're not being honest with the people and we're not educating them properly on the law and police procedures. Now, granted, we know, and I tell people all the time, one could argue that the police do an amazing job of not killing people in this country. When you look at the amount of arrests that they make, the amount of police contact that they make a year, when we look at how many people unfortunately die from a police encounter, about 1,100 approximately every year, one could argue the officers are doing a great job. They are very disciplined when it comes to that. But this leads into a conversation now of what about those who aren't doing a good job? And I think this is where, again, I think that we have a lot in common in understanding this profession. I think where I start hearing a lot of dissenting opinions when it comes to Brandon, it's always around Brandon don't hold the police accountable, right? Or it's one of those things where it's like, hey, Brandon don't hold the police accountable, or hey, hold on. Honestly, people say, listen, Brandon's a sellout. And when it comes to police issues, he does not hold them accountable, even when evidence shows and supports that the officers, one, violated the law, two, the officers did something unethical. He still tries to find a way to justify their wrong behavior.
This is the problem with people, man. And I realize that people want to be right so bad that they are willing to disregard facts. I have never been wrong about a judgment of policing according to the law. Never.
Okay.
I said all of the police interactions that I've given, I've 100% predicted that they weren't going to get prosecuted. I 100%. I 100% predicted when they were going to get prosecuted. Amber Geiger was a police officer off duty. I said Amber Geiger was wrong. She's going to jail. What she did? She went to jail. Laquan McDonald. That officer shot Laquan McDonald 12 times, killed him before he hit the ground. He was the only officer that shot Laquan during that time. Even though Laquan was on PCP and doing all that crazy stuff, they said he's going to get charged with first-degree murder because he got on the radio and said, I may have to kill this guy. I said, no, he's not. He's going to get charged with second-degree murder. It's because it's an impossibility to predict that he's going to kill a person and say that it's premeditated when the guy is actively doing things that are necessitating a police response. Second-degree murder. People want me to say that the officer that killed, they wanted me to say the officer that killed Michael Brown was wrong. DOJ investigation proved that the officer was justified in his use of force. They want me to say Eric Garner was wrong. Did they charge the officer? No, they didn't. Why didn't they not charge the officer? Because Brandon Tatum know what he's talking about, because I'm judging this based on the law, based on reasonableness and use of force policy. And I have been correct. There's no video that anybody can find that says that Brandon says that the officer weren't going to get charged or that shouldn't get charged, and they did get charged, whatever the case would be. Didn't happen. Breonna Taylor, I had inside information on Breonna Taylor. I knew for months what exactly happened, had the transcripts, had the investigation, 40-page document. I couldn't disclose it because I didn't want to mess up the investigation. But I knew that the officer Madeline didn't do anything wrong. I knew Sergeant Madeline. I knew that the police officers didn't do anything wrong. I knew what protocol is. I mean, I know what protocol is, and I know what SWAT operation is, and I know that they didn't do a no-knock warrant. And so people were upset with me about that. I mean, I think some people get mad at and say I make excuses. I don't. I give an explanation. See, people can't compartmentalize things. They can't believe that an officer is wrong and the bad guy is wrong. They only go with, if the officer is wrong, then the bad guy is Jesus Christ and he couldn't do no wrong. And they also don't want to go with the fact that if it looks bad, but it is legal according to the law, that they think I'm supposed to say this officer is wrong because it looks bad. The officer's in the situation just recently. Well, Rashard Brooks situation. According to the policy, when a person turns around and shoots a taser at you, that's an act of deadly force. And therefore you can shoot that person. And I'm explaining that when he's shooting at the officer and he turns, the officer is already engaging him. So of course he ended up hitting him in the back at some point.
Right.
You know, the new situation that's out. People they shouldn't have shot him 60 times. And it's like, well, first of all, let's go through the fact, are they justified in shooting him at all?
Yeah, Jayland Walker you're referring to, right?
Jayland Walker.
Yeah.
Are they justified in shooting him at all? The answer is yes. When you look at the escalation of force, people don't want to look at it. They tried to tase him first, and it failed. And then every officer reacted to him at one time. It wasn't like one officer shot him and the rest of them was like, okay, I'm gonna jump in. They all scattered like this because he went to turn around, and they were reporting all separately that it looked like he went and took a shooter stance and he pulled something from his waistband.
Right.
Now, when you have that many officers shooting, each individual officer is diagnosing a threat. It's going to always look bad when you have a bunch of officers diagnosing one threat, because they're all going to shoot at one time. And if they all shoot a lot, then it's going to be 60 rounds.
Correct.
Should they have not shot him that many times? I think we can argue that maybe they shouldn't. But that's like, in hindsight, that's like after the fact. At the time, any reasonable person that interviewed those officers, they're going to say, because you can see on the video, he's still moving on the ground. Probably because he's taking them rounds.
I was about to say, yeah.
But to the eye. So this is the thing. When you're shooting and you see a guy moving, this is not the movies. This is not, the officers are not hearing what you hear on a video. You hear on the video, pop, 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 pop. The officers are going deaf. Because if somebody ever shot a gun without ear protection, your ears are ringing, you're going deaf. Now you're hearing shots. How do you know he's not shooting back at you? In that chaotic situation, shots are being fired. Some officers may be perceiving they're getting shot at. Some officers may be perceiving he's still trying to go for a gun. All of these different perceptions are going on all at one time. That's what leads to a situation like that. But you got to understand that they're pursuing this guy. The guy fires a shot. One guy gets on the radio and said he's just fired a shot. Every officer responding is now perceiving that this guy is probably going to shoot it out with them once they get him under control. Right. They get to the car, they're screaming. He jumps out with a ski mask. He has a ski mask on. He jumps out of a car while it's moving. The other officers already believe that he's shooting at officers. You know, it's not going to end well for you. And I wish that people would understand that.
And I think that's where, again, I see value in your platform, right? and platforms like mine, where we get a chance to actually give people a view into the world of law enforcement that they wouldn't quite understand. Unfortunately, the dynamics in this country now when it comes to race relations is a big issue. So people are hypersensitive, especially our community is hypersensitive, and they have a reason to be, right? When we look at the historical context with law enforcement. So I don't blame them, right? We also can't deny that we've had police departments who have been disingenuous. They have been corrupt. They've hidden evidence. They've tried to cover things up. They've been caught. So we have these things, and I think that the lack of transparency from incidents that might not be in Georgia or Texas or Arizona, but it's in another state, people look at it as it's the entire profession, right? You find out there's one corrupt police department or maybe 3 corrupt officers and a police department that might not be corrupt. It's an indictment on the entire profession. And I think some people, again, don't separate that well, which, okay, cool, I understand that. In reference to this shooting, though, I think this highlights kind of our difference in approach when we're looking and examining police encounters. Because me personally, I come to the conclusion when a citizen is wrong, the citizen's wrong because the law is broken, right? If the law is broken, then there's nothing really for you to say. I don't really have to examine that because we already knew what they did was wrong. When it comes to law enforcement, when people don't understand, they don't understand the profession. So when I look at it, I'm examining the officers' behavior based on policy, behavior based on training, and behavior based on the law. And I give people that perspective. I give them a more well-rounded view so that they understand. So when I'm actually critiquing law enforcement officers, I'm like, if this officer followed the protocol and the policy, this would have looked different. If the officer's training would have been better, this outcome would have been different. And so I like to examine because I know that we can do better than a lot of times that we do, right? And so with that situation, the Jayland Walker situation was very unique because you had so many officers on the scene. What am I looking at? I'm looking at the training of the officers. You know, we don't, at the end of the day, I said that shooting looked like a firing squad. It looked very barbaric. People are just now witnessing what the job looks like because now we have all these cameras now. It's always looked barbaric. It always looks bad when you're applying force in a situation. I always look at it, what are people asking of us to do? I believe society has a very, very high expectation that was set by movies and things like that. Cool. I'm cool with that. My question is, can law enforcement rise to the expectation that the citizens are asking? Can we do a better job? You know what I mean? And training, to me personally, plays a major role in this. And what you said earlier in reference to how do you train officers on a deadly scenario when you can't fabricate that? When you're in a life and death situation as an officer, there's no way to train for that. But what you can do is train better trigger discipline. What you can do is train more scenarios. I think the issue I had with that shooting is that some of the officers on the scene lacked situational awareness and they lacked trigger discipline. And they were unable to determine when Jayland Walker was no longer a threat, which led to an excessive amount of firing, which I believe was excessive. I think it was grossly excessive. Now, I do, to your point, what a lot of people don't understand, and I try to explain it, they drag me too for it, right? So again, I come in as an educator, and they still drag me. The reality is they don't understand. They never heard of sympathetic fire and what that means. But sympathetic fire is something to an untrained officer, right? It's a knee-jerk reaction. You shoot him like, oh shit, bam, and I'm shooting too. And it's like, why'd you shoot? I don't know. I thought he shot back. But when you're lost in the tunnel vision, it's easy to get sucked into a situation. And the citizens don't know that. I know that. You know that. My thing is, I acknowledge that. And I say, how can we prevent that? I always tell people, comply to survive. At the end of the day, if you don't put yourself in a situation, you won't leave it up. It's Russian roulette. You don't know how well trained these officers are. You gamble it. And I think the issue is people are saying, though this person may have violated the law, though they resisted arrest, should that be considered a death sentence? And I say absolutely not. But
that's not what, people like to equate that. It's like abortion. They like to say, Well, if a mother is dying, like you add the extras. That's not what is actually happening here. You know,
Right.
like the guy, like, so for instance, people don't watch my videos either. They already hate me because my success and all this, and then I keep it real and I talk about the suspect too. I trash the cops and I trash the suspect. They don't like that. If you watch my video, I go back and give a critique on what I think they should have done differently in hindsight, and I talk about the pursuit. I talk about the fact that they all crowded the car at one time instead of somebody flanking the guy, because they know once he start getting out the car, instead of running to him, go and cut him off. I've never used a taser a day in my career. Never used a taser. I was always hands on. I never use a taser. Either I'm putting my hands on you or I'm not.
Up when I got it.
I knuckle up, or they comply. I never have to pull the taser out because I either not finna fight you or we gonna fight.
Right.
And a lot of times people, they back down from that challenge. So, but anyway, I feel like they could have done it differently. Even when I was speaking about the shooting, I saw that there was an officer that was waving ceasefire, ceasefire, ceasefire.
Right.
Now, I think that at that point he had an observation of ceasefire, ceasefire. He was telling the other officers to cease fire. Now, of course, in a perfect world, in the right world, they would have heard him and they would have stopped shooting him. Now, he was already dead, because if every officer shot him once, he got shot 6 times. So if every officer shot twice, boom, boom, he shot 12 times. I mean, it was over for him before it ever started. However, in order for it not to seem excessive, like you said, situational awareness. If it was 2 officers on this situation, we wouldn't have had this problem.
This is true.
They would have shot him 2 or 3 times. They would have saw that he wasn't moving. It would have been over. The problem is that you can't train and you can't predict scenarios where you have 6, 7 officers responding to an active shooter person. We've seen this happen before, and people, I understand what the public thinks, and I feel the same way when I saw the video, but people have to understand logic and reality. What do you think realistically these officers would do in that scenario? Do you think that an officer will run to the scene, the guy poses as a threat, and officers are going to say, hey, you shoot, I'm not going to shoot? That's not reasonable, because you have to, and I know there's a lot of explaining, and public will think it's excuses, but when you're responding code 3, some people never respond to code 3 in their life. They don't even know what I'm talking about.
Right.
Lights and sirens, code 3, you begin to feel the adrenaline and tunnel vision, right? I know I've been to this plenty of times, but being trained, you don't get tunnel vision as much.
Correct.
You start to go, you're going 70, 80 miles per hour. You don't see the guy. You hear on the radio, the guy's going on the freeway, he's shooting at the officers. You go 70 miles per hour. When I get there, this could end in a shootout. You've already seen officers get killed before. You don't want to die. You don't want to kill nobody. All of these emotions are overtaking you.
Is there a way to fix that? Is there a way to address that? Because
it's a way to address it, but it's impossible to perfect it. Now, you can train officers to do this, right? And 5 or 6 years later, they're then exposed to it.
Right.
If it was easy enough to say every officer be trained on every shooting scenario right before the shift, and then they go on shift, and then if they experience it, they just got the training. The problem is that you train active shooter, you train shooting scenario, force on force, and you may go 15 years without ever shooting anybody.
That's very true.
And then all of a sudden, 15 years later, you are now facing a life and death situation, and it's all, if you're not, like, I was on a SWAT team. So every 2 weeks, we did intense 10-hour training, thousands of rounds of ammo, use of force, tactics. We did training every 2 weeks that the police department never got. It was only the SWAT team got that much training. So in a scenario, and I've been in plenty of them, where, and I also am built different than some people, like I don't have fears that other people have. Like life and death is, I think I'm going to win every time. So
yeah, that's a thing too.
When I respond to a scene, I'm thinking I'm better than this guy. I'm going to kill this guy if it come down to it. death is not an option for me. But I've always also been training with my rifle, thousands and thousands and thousands of rounds, hundreds of different scenarios, shoot, no shoot scenarios, and I'm proficient at distance. I'm used to moving and shooting. I'm used to tactically, and I have vest on, all of these things. So when I show up to a scene, I don't go like this. I don't think life and death, life and death. I get to a scene and I'm composed. I'm like, all right, I've been through this force on force scenario before. Let's approach here. Here, go to the side. Let's flank. Let's move in. We'll give commands. If he don't drop the gun, then it's over for him. And every officer, I wish in a perfect world that we all could be bold, brave, courageous,
correct,
train well. But that's just not, you rolling the dice, bro. Like, you could, like right now, just say one of us go out and we decide, F the police. I'm going to get out. I'm going to fight one of these dudes. You may get a dude that's pretty proficient and they're calm and they're patient and they're not afraid of you. They're like, dude, I'll whoop you. Get back in the car, sir.
Right.
Pull a gun, I'm going to kill you. Get back in the car, sir. Sir. Or you may get a rookie that's fresh out the academy. And when they come out the academy, everybody's trying to kill you, right?
Facts.
Everybody's trying to kill you. You got to watch out. They show you. We used to get emails of officer deaths every day, and we read through them because you want to not let that happen to you. So everybody trying to kill you. Everybody got a gun, officer safety, and you get out, and a guy that's bigger than you jump out on you. What's up, young thugger? And then your vision go like this. You start thinking all the times that officers were killed in this situation. You pull out a gun, drop the gun, and then you shoot a guy. And you could get two different officers, man. You get a guy straight out the academy versus a veteran. You get a bad cop versus a good cop. You get a well-trained cop versus a cop that's been on admin leave for the last 6 months. You know what I'm saying? Or been on desk duty.
And then they mistake their gun for their taser.
That lady, people say, you don't never hold people accountable. I trashed her so bad, I felt bad afterwards. I trashed her so bad in that video because that's completely unacceptable.
It is.
He's a dummy, but what she did was unacceptable. Anyway, so
and I agree, and that goes to the point. People want to know, I guess, and I haven't seen all your videos. I haven't seen your video on that one. I try to explain to people that time does not equate to quality in this profession.
Right.
It's about what you're actually experiencing. I was a go-getter officer. My hands was always in the mud, and I was doing stuff, always going after criminals. And so I got out of my tunnel vision really early. I had opportunity. I had to use my gun in the field. A lot of officers make it their whole career and never have to pull the trigger. It's a blessing, right? It's not anything to brag about. And so again, it's one of those things that when you go through it, you don't feel that anymore. With that situation, and again, when I'm looking at these cases, and I think perfect examples of Breonna Taylor. My issue with the Breonna Taylor situation, I think, is a perfect opportunity to bring this comparison up, is obviously 32 rounds, I think approximately 32 rounds in that house, in the apartment, I believe was one excessive, and that's not how we are trained, right? I'm looking at and critiquing the officers. Are we trained to shoot in the dark? Are we trained to shoot at an object or a person without properly identifying the target? Is that how training works? Should there have been a flashlight? Now, and again, the counter argument is, well, it's the heat of the moment. And I think the issue I have sometimes is when I hear officers make counter arguments going against what we're supposed to be trained to do, is that I feel like we end up coddling officers. We end up putting a handicap on them and preventing them from striving to try harder, be better, or to live up to the expectations of, I guess you would say, what the citizens say we should be living up to in a sense, right?
Yeah, but it's very difficult for people to understand, right? So I talked to Sergeant Mattingly, right? He was the one that got shot at the front door.
Right.
Now, all the officers were cleared. But what people don't get an insight on is,
but just because you're clear doesn't mean you're not wrong, though.
Right. But it means that, well, first of all, this is what it means.
Listen, you guys, phenomenal interview, you guys, and we barely scratched the surface. Listen, there's a whole hour and a half of more content that hasn't even been touched on yet. You guys, listen, if you want to see the rest of this, you got to catch it in the member section. This is the last video that is going to be released for the channel and for the audience, the general audience. You guys want to see the rest of the the stream, the interview, please join the channel where you can catch the full interview. Trust me, you won't be disappointed. You guys, listen, what do we touch on in this particular piece? I definitely wanted to really analyze this a little bit further, you guys. People are going to say, hey, what is the difference between you and Brandon Tatum? Listen, I would say our approach into the space is different. You guys, he has set up a foundation here on YouTube. He's a powerful voice on YouTube. He's a dynamic voice on YouTube and outside of YouTube, you guys, politics, business, you guys, he is a force. Nonetheless, what makes us different, you guys, I came into YouTube with a very specific and unique purpose. I wanted to mediate between two groups, right? Law enforcement and then the citizens. You know, I break down the behaviors of officers. I acknowledge the behaviors of the citizen. I hold both sides accountable. I'm here to scrutinize behavior. I'm here to translate. I'm here to mediate between the two, you guys. A very unique, separate purpose. And it's not that I'm not holding the citizens accountable. It's not that I don't hold the police accountable. I'm here to bridge the gap. I'm here to find the unique differences and also the similarities. I'm here to translate. A very bold undertaking, I would have to say so myself. I never realized how difficult it would be, you guys, but this channel is a reflection of the growth and the support, and I really appreciate it. And I appreciate the opportunity that Brandon gave me to do this interview, you guys. I can't say it enough. I'm truly grateful, and I'm looking forward to working with him more in the future on a lot of different issues involving law enforcement. At the end of the day, though we might have different perspectives on certain things, though it might be two sides of the same coin, the reality is we still want the same outcomes. We want to see people safe. We want officers safe. We want citizens safe. We want this country safe. We want a better America. We want better outcomes overall. And I'm looking forward to working more with him, working more with you guys as we build this channel on this journey, guys. Stand by for the preview to the next episode of Two Sides of the Same Coin, you guys. You know how to catch it. I look forward to seeing you in the member section. And with that, you guys, let these truths find you where the lies have left you. Good night. God bless.
Why you don't turn into bad cops? Nobody knew that this guy was capable of doing what he did. Let me give you a scenario of a bad cop that everybody knew was bad. And it's almost impossible. I'm going to give you two.
All right, do it.
A bad cop that everybody knew was bad, and another cop that I'll give you three people. I'm gonna give you three. Go
ahead. Yeah.
This one cop, I don't know how he started, but I know when I was on the department, he always would. They call him the rubber band man. He was always stretching the law. He was always this close to violating somebody's constitutional rights. He was always this close to using excessive force. Everybody hated him.
Yep.
He goes on a rogue assignment where he goes to an apartment, he don't check out on the radio. Nobody knows he's there. What he tries to do is he tries to do stuff, and if he hit the fan, he walk away from it. Nobody knows. If he need it, he'll call on the radio. Oh, I got one running. You like, dude, you never checked out on traffic or nothing. Like, what you mean? So he's in this apartment complex on the 11th floor. He's trying to do this secret, trying to catch this crackhead without going on the radio. Ended up going south. She runs and jumps over the balcony on the 11th floor. She's hanging off. We had a hostage negotiation response. Anyway, come to find out this fool never checked out.